RogueCon 23. That's right. It is here. It's not back. It's here. It's the first one. Join the ultimate celebration of digital content with its creators, passionate fans, and industry experts. It is all happening in downtown Waco across multiple venues, January 20th through the 22nd of 2023. Now, if you want to go, you got to get tickets, and tickets are on sale at RogueCon23.com. That's RogueCon, RogueCon 23.com. Be there. I'm going to be there. Everybody's going to be there. Let's go.
Coming up on the Payoff, I just got a reminder about recording this intro. I am pulling up to my childhood home, and there's a car in the driveway that I don't recognize with a tire cover that has cat eyes on it. So that gives an insight into what the heck my mom has going on here. I have no idea. Anyways, the podcast this week is going to be unbelievable. I'm home because it's Christmas, and this is a Christmas podcast because it comes with gifts galore. It's actually an episode of the Megna Method. When I was on Marc Megna's podcast in, I guess, right before Thanksgiving, it was just an incredible experience for me. Marc and I go all the way back to the University of Richmond, where I was recruited to play football and couldn't play because of a heart problem. We get into all that stuff, and you may already know the story. Marc went on to play in the NFL, and he could have been a strength and conditioning coach anywhere in the country, college or pro, but he decided to open up his own gym in Miami Beach, and now they've moved along parts of Florida and maybe other parts of the country. But it's an incredible conversation with a friend about getting better. A lot of it's around sobriety and alcoholism, and a lot of it is around life. So I want you to listen to this, and when you get done listening to it, if you got more time, Just a Kid from Fall River. It's a documentary about Marc's life. I was actually lucky enough to be featured in it. It's unbelievable. It talks about his rise to great success on the field and off the field after he literally had a childhood that you wouldn't necessarily think somebody in this circumstance would come out on top and end up in the NFL and the CFL and win a Grey Cup. All right, enough out of me. Come on now. I'm going to see this guy in T-minus 24 hours. Let's bring in Kevin Sousa.
You're going to remember this every day for the rest of your life. If you want to get to a goal, if you want to get to your dream, you got to focus on all the little steps. You have to put in your time. You have to be patient, and you have to enjoy the process. Whatever you're doing now, whatever you want to be great at, whatever you want to be special at, I'm sure you maybe already be good at it, but to be extraordinary, you have to do extra. I firmly believe that we are all here for a very specific reason, to do something truly extraordinary. But what are you going to do to get there?
Welcome to another episode of the Megna Method podcast, a podcast that strives to deliver inspiring stories of hard work, perseverance, and a commitment to excellence. Today's guest on the show is Pete Sousa. Pete is currently a news anchor and journalist for KWTX in Waco, Texas, and has an extensive history in public relations work with most of the major professional sports organizations, such as the NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, and the NCAA. He is also the host of the entertaining and motivational podcast, The Payoff with Pete, where he interviews many inspiring and incredible people who share stories of overcoming alcohol and drug addictions. This reuniting discussion between Marc and Pete delivers some great insight to self-awareness, humility, and valuing what's right in front of you. You can find the Megna Method podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment to let us know how the Megna Method podcast has influenced you.
All right, so let's just start this up. First of all, I'm so excited to have you on the show, Pete, because we are lifelong friends who met.
Lifelong. It's
Seriously,
crazy to say that.
I know, but it's true. Who met at the University of Richmond through the football program. And when we met, you were instantly one of my favorite people because of your spirit, because of your energy. And you're just an all-around great human being. We could tell stories, and I know we're going to get into some of those stories, but let's talk to us.
First of all, I got to say it. this is a humbling moment for me to be a part of this. To be a part of your life and to be in this orbit is an honor, and that's no BS. It means a lot to be a part of this and to be talking with you,
Wow.
to be catching up with an old teammate who I consider family, and a good friend. Means a lot, but also to be considered for something like this is awfully cool.
Well, thank you for saying that, but I'm going to let the audience in on something. At the University of Richmond, on game days, a lot of families come in. My mother was back home working a couple jobs, so she didn't get to come down very often. She came down, I think, once to drop me off as a freshman and once as a senior when I was presented with the Dudley Award. And there were a lot of great families that I became a part of, and one of them was the Sousa family. And I remember your father and mother taking me out to eat at the Outback Steakhouse. And,
Yeah.
and it's like, you think about it, it sounds so small and not important, but it was so important to be a part of someone's extended family. And I can't even tell you what that meant to me at the time. One will never know, but I'm telling you now that it was incredibly special, so thank you.
Yeah, well, it's so ironic how that works out. My father always talked about you because you were from Massachusetts and he was from Connecticut. And, the story goes, and you said to my father, you said, Sousa, you guys have your own phone book where I'm from. And my father always repeated that line. He loved it because he had friends from Connecticut and Massachusetts. My dad's Portuguese, a lot of Portuguese people from the Northeast. And there was that instant family vibe, too.
Oh man, it was the best of times, and I know we're going to talk a lot about that. But let's talk about what you've been doing since Richmond and about your life. And Pete is an anchor on the news. He's going to tell us all about that. But it was very interesting. Maybe you want to start with what took you away from football, which kind of set your pathway. No?
Yeah, well, getting sober, that's what we're talking about, right?
Well, first, I think it's important to let people know that Pete was a stud high school football player from Philadelphia, and he looks like a superhuman when he shows up. And we're super excited to have a wonderful addition to our team, great person, great athlete, great contributor, and then he finds out he can't play. So maybe start there.
Oh, man, it sucked. It's funny, I still think it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me in a sense that it just put me on my path. And I do believe that there's a plan for all of us. And embracing that plan and doing your part is what it's all about. You can have all the faith in the world, but faith without works is dead. And so it's not like this situation happened to me and I was like, oh man, I think I always had a good attitude. But the situation Mark's talking about is I was, a good football player. I was going to play football in college. I'd already had committed to the University of Richmond. And Mark, did you play in any of those summer All-Star games?
For high school?
Yeah.
I played in the Shriners game. It's a big game in Massachusetts.
Oh yeah. So yeah, it was kind of new. We had the Big 33.
I remember that game. Yeah,
which I wasn't good enough to play in, but that was huge. And then we had like this new city All-Star game called the Hero Bowl, and I was tapped to play in that. Part of it was you have to go get a physical to play in the game, and I went to get the physical. It was after Memorial Day, and it still isn't. I'm still not quite sure as to exactly what contributed to this health situation, but I was going to get the physical, and a doctor, not a cardiologist, just a physician, was listening. To take your heartbeat. And honestly, man, I remember leading up to that year, I hadn't had like a real good physical. It was one of those things where I was kind of working against the clock. I had to get a sheet filled out. And I went to some doctor who maybe listened to my heart for a second and, whatever. Hey, count to three or backwards, who knows? But anyways, I got this sheet filled out. So I passed my physical from our senior year to play football. So now I'm getting the first real physical or doctor's appointment I've had, and I don't know how long. And this guy that's the doctor for this All-Star game tells me your heart is beating funny. It's got some kind of arrhythmia.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't clear you to play in this game. I need you to see a cardiologist. And I didn't think anything of it, man. I was actually relieved. You know, I was in party mode at that point. I was. Yeah, I was. I mean, we've been down, you know, being from Philly. I'm from outside of Philadelphia, like Villanova, Bryn Mawr area. But you go to the Jersey Shore. It's like all the people that I played against in the Philadelphia Catholic League and people from public and private schools. Everybody kind of goes down there. And I was partying down there. And so I wasn't really thinking much of it. So the guy said you had to see the cardiologist. And then, dude, I went to see the cardiologist. And I remember they gave me a stress test, which is where you run on the machine and you have all the wires connected to you. They gave me or back then it was wires. You know, now it's a little different. They gave me an echocardiogram and an EKG. And once I remember when I was doing the stress test and I was running on the treadmill and they were looking at my heart, I as a kid, I remember looking at the cardiologist who was looking at his nurse or whatever, his assistant, and I knew something was wrong by the looks on their faces. And something really was wrong, dude. And it was like, you don't even want to acknowledge it. I still don't like to acknowledge it, but my heart was beating like it was extremely weak. You know,
Pete, at the time, I have to stop you. Did you feel anything?
You know, looking back, yeah, I did. I kind of felt fatigued towards this. I've been partying a lot. I've also been working out. You know, you're lifting heavy weights because I was a defensive end. I was a little bigger. And so I had felt some sort of fatigue. But I didn't know that anything was wrong. I just thought that I was, you know, tired a lot. I was partying a lot. I was working pretty hard. So no, I didn't think anything was wrong with me. Honestly, if anything, I thought I was invincible, like we all do at that age.
Of course.
Yeah. And my heart was just it was beating at like 20%. And so they were like, you know, the people that have the strength of this heart, of the heart like this, or the weakness of the heart like this, you know, sometimes they're bedridden. You have something called cardiomyopathy, and this is right after Reggie Lewis had died. You know, being from Massachusetts and Boston, you can't ever forget that. You can't forget Hank Gathers passing away. People had started to drop dead from this stuff, so doctors were super cautious. So the moment they figured out what was wrong with me, they were like, you know, you're not going to play in this game, but you may never play football again. And that was like, whoa, because, you know, I don't know if you were like me, but my whole identity was wrapped up into that stuff. So it was like, what? I honestly, I never even stopped to acknowledge it. I just kept partying and acting like I was going to play football again.
Wow. And at what point do you realize, like, it's doubtful, like it's not happening? Because listen, if that happened to me, oof, man,
Oh, dude, if you remember, I was, you know, so I get to Richmond and, you know, I'm on full scholarship, right? Just like you. But now I'm the guy that's on full scholarship that's not playing. But I look like I'm totally healthy. I mean, I'm asymptomatic, right? So I'm this guy that looks like, I don't know what to say, picture of health, but I looked like I was 100%. And I felt like I was 100%, but I'm being told I'm not. And, you know, my teammates, you know, guys are going out playing against Marc Megna on the scout team. And, you know, Matt Davis is getting his ass kicked, you know, not because Matt Davis isn't a good player, but because Matt Davis is a freshman and he's playing with a bunch of scout team guys against the first team defense. And, you know, Todd McShay's getting his ass kicked and Rob Belli's getting his ass kicked. And even a guy like Paris Lennon, everybody is having to slog it out in summer camp, guys going down. And here I am just sitting there, you know, on full scholarship, holding a clipboard. So people are looking at me like, I think as young guys, they couldn't help but to be like, what the hell is this guy's deal? I remember one time I got into like a shoving match with Paris Lennon in the locker room because I think, you know, I was scared.
That's funny.
I had to write his name. They gave me shit to do, these coaches, right? Like, he's going to earn his scholarship. So they're like, write these guys' names on the board for the scout team. I didn't know. Paris spelled his name with 2 N's, you know, so I put 1 N. or it's vice versa. And I got it wrong, and he was like, "Yo, man, you don't know how to spell my name." I was like, "Oh gosh," So now I got to stand up for myself. We're in the freshman locker room, and I think a lot of that was, at least for me, it could be misperceived. Paris and I ended up being good buddies. We lived right next to each other by the time we were seniors. But at that point, I perceived that as a resentment from guys that we're working hard, getting our asses kicked, and you're not doing shit. And too, I had a positive attitude. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so people were like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? I mean, Mark, you remember, you were always really supportive, and I'm not just saying that because we're talking. You were always real supportive, and guys on the team were supportive. And to go back to it's a long answer to your question, but I was told that there was a chance I was going to play for the first, 2 years.
Really?
So I would work out with the team. I would lift with you guys. They were like, no, jarring activity. So playing basketball was out, but I still would do all this shit.
Of course,
so was
yeah.
drinking and smoking weed. I did that all the time. When I was in high school, I took speed before a football game, and I played very well.
Ooh.
And that was something. That was one of those things where it was a mind F in a sense where I thought that, okay, I need to take this stuff to be good.
Of course.
And then also it was like, if I take this stuff, I'll be the person I'm supposed to be. It'll make me as good as I'm supposed to be. And that is a lie. I know that now. That's a lie.
Yeah. But I tell you what, if you take that, you have a great game. Guess what? I'm taking it again.
Yes.
And people think that that's dude. You make a young person feel like they're invincible, and then they're productive, and then they're revered for it. It's over. It's over.
It's over.
It's kind of like when someone. I know we'll get into this, but where I grew up, there was a group of kids who were like gods because they were ridiculous athletes and they were respected. When they drank, they felt invincible, so they smoked pot, they did coke, they did recreational drugs of all kinds, prescription pills. And whenever they did those things, they felt like gods. So guess what? They kept doing it. So
all the time, and we know where that leads.
Oh yeah.
I remember it was a game. It was the day after Thanksgiving, and our defensive coordinator, this guy John McGuire, who really helped me out, was an influential guy when I was a kid. He got University of Pittsburgh, to come look at me, and I didn't have any. I just wasn't motivated. I didn't take any speed, and I played awful. And honestly, looking back, that eats at me because Mark, you were God, you gave 195% every game, and every workout, and every moment.
I appreciate it.
Well, it's the truth. And I had this sickness. I don't know, ego as a kid. I got my first letter from Temple University when I was a junior, and you would have thought that I got drafted #1 in the NFL. I was all screwed up.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal, though. People don't know that.
It is, but I didn't know how to handle any kind of success. So this coach from Pitt was there, and I played awful. And I remember my coach telling me, what were you, hungover? And I wasn't. I just didn't play well. And I remember attributing that to, it's because I didn't take, Adderall before.
Yeah.
So I'm less than without that stuff.
Well, I mean, so that's where it starts, Pete. And then, you get to Richmond, you get paired. You get the responsibility of, and I think this is a very powerful lesson. I was talking to someone on our team here at Anatomy today, and I said, everything happens for a reason. And then I started to think in my head, Pete Sousa didn't get to play football, and now he's an amazing anchor. Todd McShay didn't get to play football, ESPN. Joe Douglas didn't get to play at the next level, GM of an NFL team. It's not exactly terrible. You know what I mean? So
no, and it's about dealing with the hand you were dealt and moving forward.
Oh wow, powerful, really.
Yeah.
And so you get dealt that hand, and after you let's talk about your role at Richmond that you took on, and then how it transitioned from there.
Well, that was, and I know you've had Coach Reed on here.
I'm gonna have him again, by the way, because I can't tell you how many people say they want to hear that man again. I'm not kidding.
Dude, the guy is unbelievable. He's unbelievable. And look, this is something everybody needs to know. That guy puts his money where his mouth is. He gave me a scholarship. He could have said, hey, and the NCAA, at least back in the day, they would renew scholarships once every year. Like, there was kind of a technicality. But if the University of Richmond, after offered me a scholarship that first year, they could have put me out to pasture. This guy can't play. Medically, he isn't cleared. We're not going to renew his scholarship. Coach Reed didn't do that. And he knew I wasn't going to play. And he not only did that, but as a man, he made sure that I stayed under the tent and with you guys. He gave me responsibilities, and one of the roles I had was breaking down film. One of the roles I had was filming practice. And I'll tell you, when I had to, my freshman year, I sat on the sidelines and didn't do much. I charted plays during games, but, they really didn't know what to do with me. Sophomore year, they're like, okay, we're going to, if this guy's keeping a scholarship, we're going to stick his ass up in the tower, and we're going to have him film practice. And that was a real ego blow. And when you're a kid, you don't even know what an ego blow is. You just know it doesn't feel good.
Right.
I didn't know how to process it. And I was pissed. And I would go up and film practice. And I was lucky that our boy McShay this isn't lucky, but Todd had back issues. And he basically had to walk away from the game. And he and I were close. And I remember just kind of being like, hey, you could do this and you could work it out. And Coach Reed brokered a deal with Todd. I think there was, money put towards Todd's
Todd was on the podcast. Todd said, hey, we can give you some money for food and books and pay for a little bit of this. And, so Todd went home.
And then that's kind of how I got paired up with Todd. And it helped me. And it did also, it gave me a broader, I honestly had the best of both worlds at Richmond, right? Because I was able to hang out with some of the frat kids, and this isn't a positive, but I would smoke weed with them and be with all different walks of life. And then you guys were my family. I mean, the football team you guys are still my brothers. And so I had that incredible bond. But I also, if you remember, Coach Reed was trying to push us all to get into fraternities because he wanted us to he just wanted people in the school invested in the football program and wanted us to experience the most of college we could.
So, there's so many stories, but, you're filming, and just to tell you this, you'll always be family, you'll always be a brother, and you're one of the most important people in my life. And I don't talk to you a lot. We exchange social media, texts, but, it's so unique because I know that there's a bond that happens in college like that. And I think it trickles down from the coach, and it becomes something unique and extraordinary, and that's what makes it special. That being said,
you share so much. When you're not everybody in the world is getting up at 4 a.m. and working out together, right?
Right.
Nobody's really doing it alone, hardly, and damn, nobody is doing it at 18 through 21. So I think that bond right there, and then being in the foxhole with other guys is something that is unbreakable.
Right. And I think that, that's those moments in that time there molded all of us in such a unique and positive way. And there's so many things, like, and I talk about it all the time, and I talk about Jim Reed attributes. Something that Coach Reed did well was I can make a power list, and I was going to do it today. I didn't have a lot of time this morning, but he saw people and viewed or thought what's possible with that person. He saw them being bigger and more important and more successful than they probably thought of themselves. And I always thought that was so amazing. And I talk about when he came into my house, and you know the story well, what he said to my mother. And my mother was like, you really think my son can do all those things? He said, I wouldn't be here if I didn't think he could do all those things.
Yeah.
So he made you believe those things, but he never minimized anyone. Like, there's kids there that he would call idiots because he thought the kid was an idiot because he saw that kid being a doctor or a lawyer or something huge in society, and the kid didn't think of himself that way. And today, Sam Kaufman's a lawyer, right?
Yeah.
Andrew Bogle's a doctor. And there's
Yeah.
countless doctors and lawyers. I mean, there's so many success stories, but he wanted people to be more than what they thought they could be. And I thought that was an extraordinary skill and a gift. And he kept...
Well, and I think that's when he would get frustrated.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
You had a chance to play for Bill Parcells, and I always, I just love Bill Parcells. I don't know him like you know him or knew him, but I just love motivate. Look, man, I need people like that in my life. Bottom line, I don't know that you do, Mark. I mean, you're pretty much a self-starter, man.
We all need it. We all need it.
Yeah, I get up sometimes. I'm looking for shortcuts, and that wasn't an option with Coach Reed, and it wasn't an option with Coach Cohn, and it wasn't an option with Coach Leonard or Coach Zamberlin or Coach London. I mean, wasn't an option, and I'm telling you, man, I needed that. I still need it to some degree. I have, and we'll talk about this. I have like a 12-step program, right? I'm involved in recovery, and that keeps me on task when I'm choosing to do it as much as I should. Which I don't know, man. Coach Reed was the beginning of. We're so young and unassuming at the time. You really, I mean, looking back, you don't know what's good for you.
Right. And then, by the way, that's what I got to jump in. That's what I wanted to say. At the time, some of them, like, not only do you hate the experience, you hate the person dishing it out to you, and you think that, you know what, I don't need this shit. I don't need any of this. This is not something I need. I don't need him barking at me. And the coaches are looking at you like, if you don't have this, do you have any idea where you're going to end up? And they're not wrong. They're not wrong, because without that direction, discipline, and structure, do you think you could have pulled off what you're doing today? Honestly.
No, I always had that gear, which brought me back to like the fundamental. At least I knew what hard work looked like,
right.
And I knew what accountability looked like. And I had to act myself into that thinking, right? To being accountable. I couldn't just say, hey, I want to be accountable. I had to learn how to do it. And it starts new every day, right? Because some days, like I said, I'm looking for shortcuts, but it started. That was the first time I was accountable. And dude, we talk about my drinking and stuff like that. The moment my addiction and all the alcoholism really took off was the moment I was out of the nest. And I'm not talking about my parents' nest. I'm talking about Coach Reed's nest, the Richmond football nest. Those guys, man, if we got like under a 2.0 or a 2.5, which is not good, right? But if our grades dipped, I was going to be sitting in study hall on Saturday afternoon in the spring, staring at the head coach.
Yeah. Fear. It's called fear. Fear.
It's called fear, man. I mean, he kept us accountable. And, I at the time would be like, oh, this guy doesn't want me to fail out because he doesn't want it to look poorly upon him. That guy wanted me to be the best I could possibly be.
That's so interesting and so powerful, Pete. Like, it's kind of like, I tell the team here, like, they think at times that we're pushing them to make the brand better and make the business better. And of course that's there. I understand that's a part of it. But at the end of the day, I was telling a story. I spoke in Seattle about a month ago, and I said, you think they're pushing you to build the brand. They're pushing you because you're probably behaving in a mediocre manner and you're not the best version of yourself. When you walk around and you take pride in your work, you straighten up the facility. When you ask, what else can I do to be helpful? You're practicing being a better person. Do you understand that? That's about you. That's not about the business. And if you don't do that now, you're not going to wake up at 40 and go, let me do that. You just won't. Yeah. You won't.
No.
So
none of that stuff happens overnight. And you might as well get busy doing it because it's fulfilling too.
That's right. That's right.
You want to have that. Look, man, that's what you just described there. Those are all esteemable acts. And if you want to have genuine self-esteem, you have to do those esteemable acts so you feel good about yourself and you have a natural confidence that has developed over time. Because when you're not doing shit you're ashamed of, you're going to have confidence. And this is not, none of these thoughts or ideas are my own. I stole all this stuff. Mm-hmm. But I've been around people who know more than me or who walked it before me, and yeah, I didn't understand it back then. I certainly didn't. I appreciated Coach Reed, and I liked, I always liked him. I always liked all our coaches, and you and I have the luck, we have the good fortune of seeing our coaches. I saw Coach Leonard. I was working a football game. I know I sent you a picture at in Colorado State. No, what was it? Utah State. And because I do some freelance football, and I saw Coach Leonard, and I had to go say hi to him before the game. I was down the field, and he was so floored to see me. And of course, right away, I'm like, we're talking about keeping up with people. Marc Megna, very successful down in Miami, very successful. I'm like,
oh man, I
Joe
can't.
Douglas, general manager of the Jets. It's like he was so proud. He was talking about, and I told him a great story. My dad died a little while ago, and you brought up my father. And this is the Richmond football family. I'm home with my girlfriend. We had a year later, we had a little get together, and I didn't make a huge deal about that it was happening. And dude, before the mass, Matt Davis walks in. He drove from DC down to, just did the down and back.
Oh my goodness.
And he walked. I was like, it meant so much. He comes in solo, and I told Coach Leonard about that, because this is probably about a month ago, so that it just happened about a week earlier, and I could just tell on his face, you can feel that he was just like, so it's something you can't describe, but when you're a part of it, man, it feels good. And you got to keep tapping into it. You got to keep having conversations like we're having, and when you see a coach, take the opportunity to go. I told him, and this was not of me, I was like, hey, Coach Leonard, just so you know, you meant a lot to me. You mean a lot to me. I'm 10 years sober. There are things that you did when I was a kid that I've carried with me through the rest of my life. And you had a real positive impact on me. And it's because it's true, and you might as well tell the person.
Oh, man. What you just said about Matt Davis, there's a lot of that in that family that we came from. And it's even, and we say it all the time, but it stems from Coach Reed. Matt Davis is an extraordinary dude. Oh, and he's one of my favorites. And he was like my little brother, and I love that guy. And I knew his older brother. Yeah. And I remember being in the room when his older brother came in to speak in a wheelchair. Yeah. And I remember Matt, by all accounts, Matt Davis committed to Richmond because of his brother.
Matt Davis was recruited to play at Ohio State, Michigan State, Maryland. And when Maryland was real good, Maryland's bounced back, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Oh my. Matt was a huge recruit and athlete.
He was the best. He was the best high school football player, I think, in DC his senior year. He won the Timmy Award.
That's right. I heard that, Matt was great, man. I just love Matt. We have so much in common, and he's just a great human being. And I'll tell you, Coach Reed took 3 planes to get to Richmond for my Hall of Fame service. And
I remember. I was there.
He said he couldn't make it. And then when he walked in, I was thinking, Coach Reed, he's a legend, man. He just walks in.
Yeah, he did. He's a legend, man. Yeah. I mean, he truly is a legend. And for a guy like that, when he came, Mark, I think, to that ceremony, I'm pretty sure he was coaching at Iowa.
Yeah.
And he was recruiting.
Yeah.
So he was in the weeds, but he made time to get to show up for that.
I hear a voicemail. It's cold out. I drove to the airport. The airport shut down, but I'm headed to another one. I'm thinking, this guy's it sounds like he's the nom, but he's gonna make it. It's very unlikely.
Oh, he's gonna make it. Yeah. You can always go down and back.
It's very unlikely Coach Reed doesn't make it. You're better off meeting Superman or something. But you know what? Do you remember what Coach Reed did on the way back from games? How he got back home?
What do you mean?
Well, University of Richmond is in one location. City Stadium is in another location. It's not
so we would bus, right?
Yes, we would bus there. It's not exactly close, right? It's far away.
Yeah.
So
it was probably 30 minutes, 25 minutes.
If it's 30 minutes by a drive, I'm thinking it's at least 7-8 miles. No.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. He would run back after the game.
Dude,
So
I completely forgot that.
yeah. So you think about what the energy it takes from a 50-plus-year-old man, a college football game, all week preparation, up at 4 a.m., ready for the game planning. We play the game. It's 4 hours. He runs home. I was
Let me
like,
ask you this, because you're the guy that knows all about mental wellness and physical fitness. How the hell did he do that? I mean, how much was I think about this sometimes when I'm tired. How much was that guy sleeping? How much do these coaches sleep? I know you had a situation. I don't know if you still do it, where your wife Melanie was talking about you sleep like 4 hours a night. She was finally like, "Hey, bro, come on, let's go." We gotta get you some more
well,
rest,
Melanie's
right?
like, she put it to me like, this is not fun anymore. You're going to die because you're not going to make it. It's like, it's not, I remember listening to the Joe Rogan show, and Matthew Walker, who wrote the book Why We Sleep, said, I listened to the whole thing. It's like 2 hours and 20 minutes. And he says, hey, there's one stat that you really need to pay attention to. And that stat is very simple. Those who sleep the least die first. It's a fact. So the day I heard that, I said, uh-oh. I said, I'm certainly winning that contest. And I don't want, that's a contest that I don't want to win. So
yeah, I need to work on that. I mean, I'd be lying if I sat here and was nodding my head like, oh yeah, I need, that's something I need to find time for in my life, which is like I need to find a way to get more rest, just because of the hours I talked about. I work mornings and it's crazy, and so sometimes that leads me. I remember I would text you in the morning when I started to do mornings, because I knew you were the only person on earth who I knew that was going to be up at the same time. And it made me feel good. It did.
Yeah.
It was 2015. I was
remember.
up in Northeast Louisiana. I was texting you, like telling you what I was doing, and you were texting me back and kind of keeping me going. And Coach Reed, I don't know. It's just one of those things that blows my mind about how the energy he has sustained over his whole coaching career.
Right. So to answer your question, I'll tell you this. I firmly believe that there are certain people on this planet, and that I'm not insinuating don't need sleep. Everyone needs a great amount of sleep. Sleep is one of those powerful, I call it vitamin S. Sleep is everything, right? Yeah. But you got to think like Coach Reed is one of those unique people in this world that has the ability to make his mind like a sniper rifle and go right at his target, and he will absolutely die. And everyone says, yeah. I'm like, no, he gets it done, and he does things that most people, listen, I'll tell you another quick one. He wanted to save money for recruiting. He was recruiting people in New York, New Jersey, and Massachusetts. He drove up there on a Friday or a Thursday, scouted, was at the day before practice on Friday in Massachusetts. He drove up there to prove a point, to save money.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. That's like, how much sleep do you think he got on that trip?
RogueCon 23. That's right. It is here. It's not back. It's here. It's the first one. Join the ultimate celebration of digital content with its creators, passionate fans, and industry experts. It is all happening in downtown Waco across multiple venues, January 20th through the 22nd of 2023. Now, if you want to go, you got to get tickets, and tickets are on sale at RogueCon23.com. That's RogueCon, RogueCon 23.com. Be there. I'm going to be there. Everybody's going to be there. Let's go.
Hi, I'm Hank. You might remember me from a show called King of the Hill. Check out a King of the Hill rewatch podcast. These boys ain't rap, but they are funny. Find the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts or at roguemedianetwork.com. I tell you what.
That's what I'm talking about, dude. Not to belabor the point, but what do you think he was averaging? Like 3-4 hours? And I mean, in season, think about it, dude.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. And he's still kicking in stronger than ever. So, I mean, He's a unique guy. So Pete, talk. You leave Richmond. You said you were out of the nest, so you started to,
I was out of the nest and right away, dude. I was like, I just kind of started to look, man. To get right into it, my father's family. I don't know what it is, man, but you're from that area. There's a lot of inherent addiction in that part of the country.
Oh yeah.
And I don't want to say that's who knows, man. But that's just my experience with that area of the country. My father side of the family, we say that alcoholism didn't run in his family; it galloped. And there was alcoholism all throughout my dad's family, and his father died of alcoholism. His sister did, and a lot of like my cousins and stuff. Really, some died from addiction, and some ended up in prison. And I don't know, like it wasn't really talked about. It just wasn't. It wasn't a discussion. So the moment I started to drink, man, I tell people. When I was in 8th grade, I would go to the dance and I would be terrified. And then I started to drink in like 9th and 10th grade, and I couldn't wait to get there. And that was kind of always my experience with alcohol. And when I got out of Richmond, it was all I wanted to do, man. It really was. It was all I wanted to do. And I didn't even know it. I was already blowing up my life. I lived down in Philadelphia. Ecstasy had just kind of come on the scene. And I was taking this stuff like Tic Tacs. And you're making yourself dumber. That's the one drug, and I did them all. But I can remember waking up the next day being like, I am way short, 3 bottles short of a 6-pack right now mentally. I'm not with it. And McShay threw me a lifeline. Todd McShay, he and I were super close at Richmond, and he said, I got this opportunity you'd be perfect for, because I did have some natural skill, God-given talent. I think we all do. And Todd had been witness to some of that. And he gave me an opportunity. So I moved up to New York from Philadelphia, and we started working together. I worked in football, part-time for an agent and part-time for a football scouting service. And it was an incredible opportunity. But I wasn't ready for that either. I was not focused on, I was focused on my job a little bit, and I think I had some periods of success, but it was, when am I going to party? That was the number one thing. And so the structure we had at Richmond, once that was stripped down, I was up to my own devices, and my own devices were no good for me. No good,
Well, it's Todd throws your lifeline, and I know Todd McShay is ESPN college scouting, one of our friends, worked very hard to get where he is. How do you change your behavior? Because this is a journey, and I have someone I know very well who's close to me who, went through this process, and we talk about it a little bit. And I'm always, to change your behavior it's one of the hardest things in the world. Most people don't change. That's a fact. So how did you get yourself out of this, Pete? Because you're partying, you're drinking. Talk to me about the journey.
It's not of me to get out of this. It's really way bigger than me, right? Like you could get into all the details and you could be here all day talking about it, but Todd and I are working together, and I start to we're living in New York City, we're living on the Upper East Side, and I start to do cocaine, and it's just, the first time I did that, it was like, okay, I think I want to do this every day for the rest of my life. Like normal people don't do that. And so I just quickly went off the tracks, and I disappeared from New York. I'm back home in Philadelphia. I'm living with my parents, and I wrecked a car. I ended up bottoming out at like 26, right? And then I started to go to 12-step meetings, started to go to AA, and it started to work. But I wasn't ready, dude. I just wasn't ready. I had to be. Sometimes people need to be a part of. And I felt like I wasn't committing 100% to being sober, and I still had one foot hanging out with my buddies who were great guys, but they could handle smoking marijuana and drinking. I couldn't. So I go back to doing that, and I get jobs working in the NBA, and I have these, your ego's pumping, you're traveling with teams, and I was doing public relations, but really what I was just doing was prolonging my pain in drinking and using, and I was also. It's cheating death, man. Remember now, I got cardiomyopathy. and I'm addicted to cocaine and Klonopin. It's just and alcohol was always my baseline. So I bottomed out when I was 33, man, and I mean, so many things happened, and your bottom. You can always dig deeper, dude. And one day I was going to meetings, AA meetings, and I couldn't stop drinking. I before, when I wanted to stop, I could go to meetings and I could stop, and dude, I could not stop. And I went to a meeting with the guy, and this guy was like, "Look, man," he just shared his experience. That's what we do, and he said, "My experience is I went to rehab, and I got well." And I remember thinking to myself, I don't know what it was. It was a God thing, right? It was bigger than me. But I was basically like, this is my last chance, and a lot of, you'll read literature associated with the Alcoholics Anonymous, which is like, let the alcoholic think it's his idea to get sober. It's like an ego thing. And at that moment, I go home to my parents, right? I'm 34. I'm 33. I'm living with my parents. And I put my hands on my hips. I'm like, I have an idea. I think I should go to rehab. They were like, dude, it's about time, and away I went, dude. At 33 years old, my life's completely changed. I went to treatment in Pennsylvania, a place called Karen with a C, and I started to follow suggestions, dude. And I started to, I got done rehab, and they're like, you need to go somewhere else. I'm like, somewhere else? What are you talking about? I just spent 30 days cooped up. We're sitting here talking on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. I spent the Thanksgiving 10 years ago in a treatment center. And I can't ever forget that, because if I do, I'll probably drink again and end up right back there or worse.
So how long were you there for, Pete?
I was there for 30 days. And at the end of my stint there, this is when the magic really started to happen, Mark. At the end of my stint there, they were like, we think, a lot of people have this model of long-term recovery. And as it was put to me, it's like a couple months for the rest of your life. And it's the best thing that ever happened to me. Getting that gift of desperation and having nowhere to go, the gift of unemployment, right? They were like, you should go somewhere else. So I went to another, a halfway house, basically.
So wait, so you go to for 30 days, and then they say you should go to another one?
Yeah, which at the time you're like, and that was the miracle for me. I remember being like, all right, fuck it. Like, I'll go. Because it was working, right? I bought in. When I went to rehab, I bought in. I didn't want to drink anymore. I was done. And I started to actually talk about my feelings and be vulnerable, and it started to feel good. And I got the feelings from talking about that stuff and being open about my pain. I got the feeling from being honest like that I used to get from getting high. And I remember thinking, okay, this can work. And honestly, I remember being in rehab, and this scientist, you can talk about God and a higher power all you want, and that works for me. But man, there was a doctor that put, a brain on the wall. Like, this is your brain on drugs, and 6 months from now, if you never drink again, here's what your brain would look like. And it was a brain that was starting to function normally again. And they were like, in 18 months, you'll almost be back to totally normal function. And I remember thinking, like, so you're telling me I could go to the movies and have Reese's Pieces and a Coke, and I'll enjoy the movie like I did when I was a kid? And the guy was like, yup. And I remember thinking, like, God, I'm in. And
wow.
And then so I go to the extended care place, and I've told this story. Dude, I was working in the NBA. I worked with Todd and living in New York, and kind of you think you're a big deal, and you're not, but at least you think you do. Well, you get a job working. I worked at a Kentucky Fried Chicken in the halfway house,
Mm-hmm.
And I was terrified. I walked into KFC. I was like, I looked at the register like I was trying to fly, an F-150, or not an F-150, but an F-4, or like a fighter pilot. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and I had to learn all this stuff again, and it was there that I got, the ego has to be smashed, and my ego was smashed, and I was given a foundation to appreciate, have gratitude, and that's how I changed my attitude. That's how I changed my actions. That's how I changed my life. I was broken, and I had nowhere to go, and that got me into right thinking.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I don't, listen, I don't. What's interesting? I've talked about it a few times, but after football ended for me, and I've been playing football since I was 6 years old, and then now I'm 30. I don't know if it was like 29, 30 years old, and I'm done in Montreal. Now Montreal is a party city. Like you don't want to leave there, and I knew.
And you were the toast of the town.
Well, I don't know about that, but
come on.
No, I know this. The Montreal Alouettes hadn't won a CFL Grey Cup championship, whatever, since 1977 under Marv Levy. We won. It was a lot of attention, and we were treated really special. It was like, I don't think that this is normal. And I never wanted that to end. And I looked at myself one day and I was thinking, this is not who I am. Like, this is not what I do. I don't even want to be here. But I had great friends there, but I had such a void in my life. And I think it's just, not that it's natural.
This is when you were done playing?
It was when I was done playing. I think that we kind of have this moment where I'm going to turn my head and not let this stuff bother me. And it's like I'm not going to engage, and I'm not going to start anything too serious, and I'm going to numb myself with whatever behaviors. It could be
with the tension, with people kissing your ass.
Of course. And it's like, a good friend of mine said, you need to get going. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you can't just like work out all day and like just train and party. And I was like, he's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Like, he's absolutely right. And I think that you going through that, what you went through, helped you lay down an amazing foundation for the rest of your life. And
100%. 100%.
It was painful though, right? It was painful.
Dude, it was rough. I moved from rehab into a halfway house. Dude, I'm in a house with 9 other dudes, and some of them don't want to be there. Mm-hmm. I remember I opened the dresser drawer. It was supposed to be mine, right? The first day I moved into this halfway house, and there was a bowl of dried out SpaghettiOs in there. I was like, dude, I'm trying to go to bed. This one guy is snoring like crazy. This other guy is getting up and smoking cigarettes in the room. Dude, I'm 33. I'm like, wow. And my first day, I wrote we didn't have computers, we didn't have phones, and we used to go to the library to like kill time. If you had a job, you'd go to the library. And I remember writing my brother an email from the library, like, you got to come get me out of here. And the person that worked at the library was like, yeah, you need to leave. You can't be sending personal emails. I was like, man, tough times. But, I can talk about all that stuff. And those are the esteemable acts, dude, right? Like for the first time in my life, I learned how to do stuff on my own. I learned how to process feelings and emotions without getting drunk. For so long, every emotion I had, I didn't even know what I was doing, right? I was just pouring substance on it, and I wasn't learning how to feel. I wasn't processing any emotions, and I was a wreck. But by being a wreck, and by literally turning my life over, like you said, by changing my actions, I got the opportunity every day now to embark on a life beyond my wildest dreams. It's just whether I want to do the work, dude.
Yeah. At what point? Because I always talk about like the person I was from like birth to like the end of football and well into my 30s and early 40s. Like, I was like a super angry, aggressive person. Like, I'm a polite person and I'm a respectful person 99% of the time, but I had like this angry streak in me.
Well, dude, you reminded me of my dad, and like that's like, it's not a negative thing, but like, you guys were strong men from the same area of the country, who, pardon my language, you just didn't want to fuck with, and you didn't want to make them upset, and there was a little bit of fear there, there was a great respect I had for you, but it was also like, you do not want to cross this guy.
Well, I learned that being said, I learned that, basically you're like that because you're an insecure, scared person.
Yeah.
And like, you don't ever talk about what's going on in your life, your feelings, you're not vulnerable. And I'll tell you, like, that took a long time for me to go, wait a minute. I remember I went to that retreat. There was a Vipassana retreat. I told you about that. It was 10 days, no phone, no talking. You look down. You eat twice a day. I lost like 12 pounds.
You don't talk at all?
There's zero talking. Zero. That in itself makes people crazy, by the way.
Yeah.
Really, it makes people crazy. And like, you start with 70 men and 70 women. You meditate 10 hours a day in complete silence. Each session is an hour. And, you know, you got to do 10 days. And the reason they tell you to do 10 days is because you don't start becoming aware and understanding who you are until like the 7th day. And I can't tell you how many people have left and then they basically don't stick it out, and then they have to come back, and they're so close. But it took me all that time for me to have my aha moment and say, wait a minute, all the stuff that I say about or think about other people or judge, that's me.
Yeah.
And I got to work through this because I don't want to be a 70-year-old man, you know, or 60-year-old man or 50-year-old man and be an asshole. I don't want to be a person that, and look, it doesn't matter what anyone thinks. It's what I thought and what I knew.
Yeah.
I'm tired of the insecurity. I'm tired of all this stuff. I don't want people to look at me and say, you know, I see certain people who are so successful in life and they act like children. It just makes me, it's crazy. And I think, when did you have your moment where you're like, you know, I gotta start dealing with some of my things, and, you know, my internal dialogue? When did you have that aha moment?
I think it's funny. It was like, you know, I knew that I had to stop drinking, right? I mean, I knew that, but I had no idea what was going to come with it. So being an alcoholic, when you get into recovery and like 12-step work, you stop drinking to save your ass, right? You stop drinking to save your life, for me. And then all of a sudden you don't realize you're involved in this program where, you know, you have to face all this shit. You know, like we got, you know, if you know anything about the 12 steps, we do a 4-step, which is like it's called a personal inventory, a fearless and searching moral inventory. So I look at myself, my whole life. I write down on a list of paper all the people I have resentments against. You know, Natalie, the girl when I was a freshman, who basically I dated for 3 days and she dumped me at the high school dance. You know, I treated women poorly for a decade or more because I'm still pissed off about how this girl broke my heart.
But that's real. That's real.
It's real, dude. And so like, and here I am running around, the 6'5", 230-pound big guy acting like he's tough, and I'm the biggest pussy in the room. But my fear is being taken out on other people. So when I started to get into inventories like that, I started to realize, okay, I am responsible for my part in all this stuff. And, you know, regardless of what happens to me, I control my attitude. That's the one thing I control. Because stuff's going to happen around you in life, man. And it's just going to go down how it's going to go down. And at some point I realized how I react to it is going to be everything. And I think that point was when I got into working the 12 steps. You know, after you write that inventory down, you share it with a sponsor and, or a priest or whoever, dude, you know, There's no like stringent rules, and, you share it with another person though. And, you know, 100 times, I'd say in my experience, 100% of the time, the person you share it with is going to be like, yeah, so what? You know, whatever you think you did, that's the worst thing in the world that you've carried around shamefully for your whole life. It's all bullshit. You got to let it go. You got to let it go, or it's going to follow you, and it's going to be this, you know, it's going to just be an albatross for the rest of your life.
Right.
And here's another thing, dude. You help people all the time, Mark. You are a man of service. If you want to be of service and you want to help people, you got to get out of your own way. You got to get all this crap out of the way. Otherwise, you're going to be of service to nobody.
You know, it's you say it, but you know, a lot of people don't want to take that inventory and take that step, and I get it. I get
Yeah.
it. It's like a fearful thing. Someone told me this many years ago. They said, you know why they don't want to like deal with it, Mark? Because even it gives them a sense of who they are in security. Now, if they venture outside that personality or that behavior, they're scared. They don't know what's going to happen. At least they know that, right? But to change is so scary for people. You know,
It's
really
terrifying. And that goes back to your question. I didn't really have a choice. I didn't look, man. Like I think we've established, I wasn't the most thoughtful young man in the world. So when I was faced with this stuff, it was out of desperation. I just walked into a room. I said, I got nothing left. I need somebody to help me. And they were like, okay, well, if you want to get well, here's what you got to do. And I was like, whatever it takes. So I had to be pushed to that point to be able to confront all that stuff that can, no matter who you are, whether whether you've got a problem with drinking or whether you've got a problem with eating or whether you got a problem with your self-esteem or whatever, there's a way out, and it's taking a hard look at yourself, and that shit ain't easy.
Nice. So tell us what you're doing today, Pete, because I talked to Pete the other day, and he was on a run, and he said it's interesting, Mark, I don't just go on the run. Now I do the run walk. I do the intervals. That's called age, Pete. That's called age.
I was talking to my girlfriend, and I was like, and it's true. I said, I was telling Mark, I was telling her about you. I was like, I told him how, I run walk, and then sometimes you forget who you're talking to, and I'm like, what have I got to prove anymore? And you're like, come on, man, your best years are ahead of you.
That's right.
And it's true too. I mean, that's the mentality. I need to find that gear sometimes. Sometimes I'm just trying to slog through, and this goes back to what I'm doing today. I do, like you, I do a podcast and try to put out there and help people. It's called the Payoff with Pete, and I had this guy on today, who's a 90-year-old guy. He flew 159 combat missions in Vietnam. He's sober, 30 years, and he talked about, he wants to be in heaven in the afterlife, but there's an opportunity to live heaven here on earth, as this guy put it.
Wow.
And he said, "You right? I mean, and that's
powerful.
kind of what you were talking about the other day. It's like, dude, you don't just want to get through the day. You want to embrace it. You want to appreciate it. You want to be grateful." So to answer your question about what I'm doing today, I'm trying to turn my will over, every day, and to do the right thing, and to stay out of my way. And, that's from a spiritual side, because of some of the tenets I picked up through, getting sober. But for work, and this goes back to what I was saying about you, just to kind of round out the early morning stuff. I get up at 2 a.m. I drive to work. I'm a news anchor, and so I'm on the air at 4:30. I'm off the air at 7, and then I'll do some other stuff. I try to use the platform for good. I didn't, it's I love what I do, but the hours are a grind, and I also, I think this is something you could relate to. For the first time in my life, look, dude, I still have plenty of work to do in my career, and there's goals I have yet to accomplish for sure. But at the same time, too, I'm finally starting to say no to stuff, and I'm having trouble because, I was always just so happy to be asked to do something. Hey, do you want to work this football game? Hey, will you work this baseball game? I started to do baseball play-by-play for ESPN this past spring, and that's awesome. And that's something I'll never turn down. But then there's other stuff where I'm just running around doing everything. And my girlfriend's like, dude, what are you doing? You're 44. You got to rest.
Yeah.
And I do. So I'm working towards that balance now. But it's one of those things where it's like, you have to kind of you still have to learn to sit still with yourself and breathe a little bit and enjoy it, because you don't want to be worn down all the time.
No, not at all. And that's kind of what I'd like to, close off with. Like, let's talk about, Pete, you have a job that you're around athletes, you see behaviors, you're a front row seat to psychology of sports. a lot of the things that you learn, the lessons you learned in your life are going to help you, but you could pass those on to younger people. If you were giving a young person advice, a younger Pete going through college, and he's about to deal with, dating, relationships, parties, alcohol, drugs, education. He's got to know what he wants to do for the rest of his life. What advice would you give a young person? I just gave you a lot, but where would you start?
No, I often look back with regret on how I handled my just being an athlete. I used it like a drug almost. Once I started, and this is just my thing. Once I started to experience success and got attention for sports, you see your name in the paper, you're on the news. I really thought that my shit didn't stink. Mark, I didn't have that like that gear that you found. And anybody coming behind me or anybody coming up, I looking back, I just wish I gave 150% all the time, because I didn't. And it hurts to say that, but I kind of would lift just enough to look good, or I would lift, doing biceps before, a practice or a game, which is like part of that, comes with ego and stuff like that. But I didn't sell out. I would tell kids today, if you want to separate yourself from the rest of the competition, you got to sell out. One, because somebody's always watching. Somebody is always watching. And two, because you want to get the most out of your potential, because you got one shot at this. I mean, you got 4 years of playing team sports in high school. If you're lucky, you got 4 more in college. And those are probably some of the best years of your life. So to cap, and Mark, you are a perfect example of that, of a guy who, you played in the NFL. You won a championship in the CFL. You got everything out of your body that you could have gotten, and it was good enough to get you to the NFL. And I don't think anybody would have bet on you when you were in 8th grade at Durfee High School, right? No, I'm serious.
No. You know what's interesting? I was driving home, I think it was 2 nights ago.
God, I'm pissed at you that you actually work so damn hard. Go ahead.
Yeah, I remember, a gentleman that I'm working with now, he's like a big tech guy. He's had a lot of success. He asked me several questions, and he said, do you kind of feel like you're getting interviewed? And I said, yeah, I do. And he's like, it's by design, because they want to know who they're working with. And I said, I wasn't very good at sports, and that's the truth. And I know you understand what I mean. When I say that, I'm not trying to sound humble. I'm telling you the truth. But people think like, yeah, but you play
people
the NFL.
Think you're lying now,
yeah,
right?
I'm like, yeah, you're looking at 30 years later. You're not looking at like how it started from, birth till like 16, right? So
yeah.
My point is, I basically got where I am in life, in football and sports and whatever, call it whatever you want, through effort. Like really through effort. When I say effort, it's not like going beast mode and going crazy. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about someone going to the gym on Monday and Wednesday, and Mark went Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's it. Someone instead of doing 4 sets of a squat, they did 2. I did 5. Do you understand what I mean? So,
I know what you mean.
And it adds up. It's great.
Yeah, well, dude, and that's kind of my point is, and that's again speaking to the younger person, those lonely hours, right? That you put it, and I'm not talking about, and look, social media is great. I love social media. I'm on social media. I think it's great for people. But at the same time, like, I'm going to say this because you're affiliated with all the superstar athletes, but like a guy like Ben Simmons, like, stop working out with your shirt off and showing me you can hit a jump shot on social media. Like, and that's an example, and just my opinion as a pissed off Sixers fan. But like, the lonely work, right? As a kid, what are you doing by yourself to make yourself better that nobody knows about and people will find out about on the stage, on the playing field, on the court? Like, what are you doing that's going to separate you? Because at some point, bro, it's coming down to you're going to either win or you're going to lose. It's coming for all of us, whether your natural abilities are not going to supersede your lack of effort. I mean,
It's so
sooner
true.
or later.
It's so true.
And sooner or later, that chicken's coming home to roost. So you've basically got to figure out yourself, are you going to work harder than the next guy? Because, dude, young people, looking back, and that's the miracle, is to be able to think like you thought at that age, Mark, which, that is special from your mother, from whoever, but you had the ability to understand that hard work would do that for you, or that was the only thing, your only way out, whatever. Not everybody thinks like that. And that's what separates the great ones from the good ones,
Yeah. Yeah. I just, I have it, as Coach Reed said when he was on the show, he's very concerned that young people are losing their ability to want to better themselves and push themselves to places where it's probably not going to happen. And then they don't fulfill their potential. And I say this all the time. If I see someone who's really asking real questions and they want real answers, I'll tell them point blank. I'll say, dude, do you realize you have a responsibility? And they say, what do you mean? I'm like, you have a responsibility to do your very best and become what you're supposed to become. Because you have to show the people who love you in your circle what's possible. Like, you have to show people what's possible. Like, it's an obligation. You have to do it. And if you don't feel that way, look around. You're not going to wake up and be Mark Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs or, Tom Brady. You have to dig. Life is short. You have to make it happen. And if you don't start now, you're running behind, man. And I'm not telling you to kill yourself. I'm telling you to pick something. It doesn't matter what it is. Be good at it, and then you lay a foundation. It's not about the thing. It's about you caring to be good at something and going all in.
Did you see that from Tom Brady when you were with the Patriots?
So I'll tell you, Randy West.
I'm gonna tell a quick story.
Go.
So when I was working in football after college, I was working. We would cover NFL games and stuff. And when I was working with Todd, and we were working with an agent, and I was at the Hall of Fame game in Canton. You guys were playing the 49ers in 2001, I think, and I got a chance to see you after the game. And dude, right away, you went into your bag. You're like, Sousa, take these shorts. They were like New England Patriots 96 shorts. I wish I still had them.
Oh, man.
And then you were like, this is the greatest player of all time. I want you to meet Willie McGinnis. And I got to shake Willie McGinnis' hand. And you introduced me to Tom Brady, and it was so cool. And that, by the way, is Mark Megna. I mean, like, here you are, a guy trying to make the team, and you're introducing some jackass you play college football with. I mean, that's family, though.
Oh, man.
And so, but back to you. So, what did you see? I remember meeting Tom Brady when you were his teammate. But what did you see from him?
So, 3 of my cousins were at practice at Bryant College, and I remember the same thing happened.
That's where you guys have preseason.
Yeah, and I said, hey, you got to meet this guy, Tom Brady. He's going to be like the next best quarterback. He's special. And they said it's on video. It's in the movie, the film. They said, no, Mark, we don't want to meet him. It's okay. Like, they thought he was a scrub. And I said, no, you don't understand. Like, this is the guy. Bledsoe goes down. They're going to put Bishop, John Freeze in, maybe Bishop. Michael Bishop. And then 4th is Brady. I said, yeah, right now. I said, Bledsoe goes down next year. Brady's going in. Trust me. And they were like, how do you know that? I'm like, because I know. I see what he does in practice, and I see the way the coaches are tickled by, this guy is not that bad, which is code for, he's really good, don't tell anyone. So when he was in practice, he was diligent, sharp, crisp. He wanted to do everything right, and it was noticeable. Now, listen, I have enough to worry about. I'm trying to make the team. I'm on defense. I don't know if anyone out there knows this, but when you're trying to learn Belichick's defense, and you're not really allowed to make one mistake. People don't make mistakes. You can be out of position a little bit, but you really don't make mistakes. But when you're focused on what you're doing and you're seeing that speaks volumes. And he was a focused, crisp with his steps, sharp with his throws. And I was like, yeah, I think we all kind of notice what's going on there. He's not a backup quarterback. He's something special. And everyone was kind of like, we're not necessarily worried, if you know what I mean.
And that's kind of what happens in the NFL, right? You don't, they won't go on about this quarterback so somebody can poach him.
Right. They're not. They're not going to say, like, I remember Parcells when I was with the Jets. He had 2 guys on the practice squad. People don't know this, and I reference this story a lot, but in the practice squad, you make good money. And there's nothing that's, let's say Parcells had a guy on the practice squad for the Jets that another team wanted to poach and put on their active roster. That's what the practice squad is for, by the way. Parcells would say, okay, you're going to go with that other team to make how much? $250,000? I'm going to pay you $300,000 to stay on the practice squad here. And they would go, you can't do that. And he said, show me the rule that I can't do that. I can do whatever I want. So he was the first one to do that because his practice squad was like loaded with studs. I remember Geno Bell was from Arkansas. I mean, he was one of the best defensive tackles I saw, and he was on the practice squad. Someone went down, he goes in the game, that guy starts and holds his own. That's saying a lot. So coaches always had tricks to keep like great guys on the roster, but you didn't really know who they were. And by the way, they didn't want you to know who they were. Yeah. So, Pete, man, this has been amazing. I can't thank you enough.
Mark, what a great way to kick off. I don't know if
Seriously.
you were trying to this holiday, and this is to be able to share this time with you, man. It means the world, dude. I mean, it's such a shot in the arm. Whatever I do for the rest of the day today, I'm going to be feeling really good. I'm going to be feeling lighter. And it's conversations like these that I think make me and other people who are willing to have them better. This is the kind of shit that, I wouldn't be talking to you like this if I was still drinking or still, in my own way all the time. Yeah. It's a special deal. These are special relationships, and to be able to share stuff like this with you is awesome.
I'm super stoked for you, man. I'm super happy we get to talk. You're one of my closest friends in life because we have a lot of connections, and we got to talk more, man. Let's schedule some phone calls at like 2:30 a.m.
I'm all about it. And one last thing. If you haven't seen a Kid from Fall River yet, you need to get your head out of your anus and go see it because it's unbelievable. Everybody in my life that saw it said they were blown away. And that's coming from me. That's not coming from Mark or anybody else.
No, I appreciate that.
It's awesome, dude.
So Pete's referencing Just a Kid from Fall River, and Pete's in it, and not only is he in it, but like the film is not made to boast about Mark Megna. I want everyone to know that the film was actually made by Randy West of Monarch Productions, one of our Spider alums, who's an incredible human being, one of my close friends. He was just at my house this past weekend, and
he's the best.
He is one of the most special stand-up, high-character individuals you will ever meet in your life.
Yes.
And he wanted to make this film for at-risk youth to show kids. He was a teacher and a high school football coach, and he said they need more positive examples. So he drove to 50 interviews all over the country and Canada and gathered film with no budget because he cared enough about passing something on to society, and he has 2 kids to show you can do something positive if you put in the work and you focus on positive habits.
Well, dude, that's why I bring it up, and it's not a kid from Fall River. It's just a kid. My bad.
That's okay.
But it's that it can keep giving, dude. Like, this is a film. It's evergreen. It's timeless. I think that young people need to watch it because it's funny how things come full circle. It's exactly what I was talking about earlier, that I couldn't find this in myself, but you did. And if you can show it to younger people and let them see it, it is terribly inspirational.
Oh, thank you so much, Pete. And thank you, Randy West, for making something so incredible. That guy, I don't know how he does it. He's amazing. But Pete, you're the man. Have a wonderful holiday. Give my best to your family and your significant other. Tell the doctor that is your significant other that, if it doesn't work out with you, I know a lot of other people. I'm kidding. I'm
a kept man, like you said.
Yeah, I'm sure she's wonderful, and you both are wonderful together. Give my very best to her. I love you, brother, and
Love you too, man.
thank you for your time. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, Mark.
Thanks so much for listening to the Payoff with Pete. Once again, I'm Pete Sousa. And of course, we are part of the Rogue Media Network. All kinds of good podcasts you can find at roguemedianetwork.com. And of course, you can find this podcast and all those other ones wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, other spots like that.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.
Join the ultimate celebration of digital content with its creators, passionate fans, and industry experts. It's all happening in downtown Waco across multiple venues on January 20th through the 22nd, 2023. Tickets are on sale now at roguecon23.com.
Hi, I'm Hank. You might remember me from a show called King of the Hill. Check out a King of the Hill rewatch podcast. These boys ain't rap, but they are funny. Find the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts or at roguemedianetwork.com. I tell you what.